humanity lives its usual, measured life. In the White House, major political issues are decided, and for its ordinary people make plans for tomorrow and do not even suspect what changes await them. But there's only one thing. Morning changes everything. For an unknown reason, all carriers of the Y chromosome suddenly die in the city. Simply put, all males, animals, birds, and humans. Among them is the president of the country. The only men who manage to survive, this is a young, talentless illusionist, Yorick Brown, and his tame capuchin, Ampersand. Take a seat president in the event of an emergency, Regina Oliver rose it. But unfortunately, at the time of the incident, she was out of the country, and there's no news from her. Naturally, the lack of leadership leads to dire consequences. Riots begin in the city, and residents in panic smash the city, not understanding how to live further. Tensions are also growing in the White House. Employees understand that in 2 weeks, they will be ambushed, and they will run out of coal and clean water. There's no food either, enough for a long time. Animals can no longer reproduce, and it is easy to grow a sufficient supply in a short time. That's impossible. And this applies not only to one city. This will affect everyone. The senator takes over the reins of government. Jennifer Brown, it is to her that the agent of the president's secret group, Sarah Bergen, with the serial number 355, makes his way. The girl reports that she was sent here because of some real threat, but they did not have time to tell her in detail about the new task. All this time, Yorick does not leave the apartment so as not to become a target for women, but the reserves are gradually coming to an end, and leaving a note for his girlfriend, the man still decides to get out on reconnaissance. At the same time, the senator sends Sarah in search of her daughter Hira, who has not been contacted since the disaster. But Hira is in no hurry to take refuge in a safe place. Instead, she arrives at the accommodation center for victims to help those in need, including the wife of her deceased lover. And after that, the girl returns to her friend's lair. And at first glance, it seems that there are still surviving men in the city, but soon everyone takes their places. These guys were born in a female body, and only thanks to hormones they were able to change sex. Therefore, the unknown Neduk did not affect them in any way. In New York, the evacuation begins, and a heavy military equipment. Yorick has to hide to avoid falling into the hands of the military, but he still manages to sneak into a local bar to leave another message on the wall for his girlfriend. Yorick still hopes that she is alive, and after seeing his autograph, the girlfriend will return home. Usually, the guy manages to remain unnoticed, but this time, everything is not going according to plan. His capuchin escapes, and Yorick has to run after him. The restless Amp descends into the flooded subway and disappears into dirty water filled with the bodies of the dead. Overcoming disgust, the guy decides to follow him so as not to lose his only friend. At some point, it seems to Yorick that not far from him there is an equally alive man, but it seems that it was just a vision. Shining a flashlight around, the guy sees nothing else but dirty water. After getting out of the water, Yorick sneaks into a clothing store to change clothes, but there he fails to stay in the shadows. The owners of the store notice a naked guest and freeze from surprise. One of the women offers to capture the guy and give him to the authorities in exchange for a good bonus, but still, pitying the unfortunate man, in the end they let him go, Yorick, handing him a set of clean clothes. The stress he has experienced literally drives him crazy. Reviewing recordings on the phone, he remembers the day when an amp appeared in his life, and apparently, hearing the voice of a guy, a capuchin gets out of his hiding place. The pair returns home feeling completely safe there, but when he heard how the door opens, Yorick realizes he's mistaken. Someone else has made his way into the apartment, and he will have to defend himself. Armed with a guitar, he hides around the corner, and the guy fails to strike. Sarah is faster and stronger. She snatches the weapon from the guy's hands, and a few hours later delivers him to his mother, to Senator Brown. The pilots who brought Yorick to the White House are locked up. Sarah explains that they need to rest after a long flight, but everyone understands that this is not the case. No one must find out that the son of the new president survived. Otherwise, it may arouse suspicions of conspiracy and lead to even greater unrest. Yorick himself is not delighted with this situation. Having rested a little after everything is experienced, he decides to look around, but the guy's curiosity almost leads him to failure. In an abandoned office, he is discovered by Marla, the widow of the deceased president. Those who arrived in time, Jennifer and Sarah, make it look like Marla is having trouble with her mind. At this time, Yorick manages to hide, but the conspirators are threatened, and Sarah insists that the guy should be taken away from the White House. The daughter of the deceased president is trying to find out what exactly her mother saw at night. Jennifer assures the girl that this was
nothing more than a hallucination, but Kimberly suspects that Brown, who has taken over as president, is lying to her. Jennifer Brown instructs the assistants to find a geneticist who can examine Yorick and find out what happened on the planet and why he and the capuchin managed to survive. The president plans to bring specialists here, but Sarah continues, "Stand your ground. It's too dangerous, and they have to take the guy out of town." The agent is ready to take on this dangerous mission, but it must be done as soon as possible. At the same time, in Israel, the victim comes to her senses. The woman, as soon as she opens her eyes and learns that all the men on earth have died, the woman declares that fasting The President of America must now occupy it. Nora Brady, a former advisor to the president, is forced to wander together with her little daughter Mackenzie. Left without means of subsistence and having lost her husband and sons, the woman can hardly pull herself together, but still decides to fight to save herself and her daughter. The White House learns that Regina Oliver, the main candidate for the presidency, is alive. This leads to a split among employees. One piece, Jennifer Brown, remains faithful, and the later takes the side of Regina Oliver and Kimberly, the president's daughter. With such a case, Jennifer has to agree with Sarah and let her son go to a safer place. Towards this mission, the agent connects the pilots who brought the guy here, and as a motivation, she hands them the heroic stars, promising eternal glory if successfully completed. The only way to secretly get Yorick out of the building is a cart with bodies. The guy tries to refuse and come up with something else, but Sarah remains adamant. They can't take any chances, and Yorick will have to be patient. The agent successfully takes the young man out and puts him in a helicopter, but she is going to manage it herself. The second helicopter, which has only female pilots on board, must fly ahead as a distraction. But as soon as the planes rise to the desired altitude and are lost from sight, the escort helicopter loses control and scatters into a lot of burning debris. This horrifies Yorick, and only Sarah saves peace of mind, knowing that this is the price of the silence of the female pilots. After a few hours of travel, Sarah and Yorick, they sit down in the forest to rest a little. The agent can't stand it anymore and asks the guy to undress after a trip to the cart with bodies. It doesn't smell very good, and it will be better to wash your clothes before further travel. Sister Yorica, Hera, goes in search of a safe place in the company of her half-male friend. On the way, the couple enters the looted store to try to find at least some food, but instead they find a frightened Nora and Mackenzie there. After examining the girl's leg, Hera notices a serious infected wound, and she asks Nora to let her administer first aid so they can move on. When Sarah and Yorick's camp are attacked by wild robbers, the agent tries to distract them, but in order not to take risks, Yorick puts on a mask and brandishing the stick scares the girls, fearing that they will foil their plan. Unexpected guests leave, but the couple does not dare to stay in place. They get to the nearest city and exchange it for a bike taken from the helicopter generator and a couple of grenades. But while Sarah inspects and checks the vehicle, Yorick, forgetting about all the safety rules, runs away to a deserted place, deciding that he saw his girlfriend in the crowd. Best stupid act leads the guy into a trap. He is surrounded by female police officers who tear Yorick's mask off and learn his secret. Sarah had to intervene to protect her friend, and after beating him off, she takes the guy away. But as soon as it is issued a free minute, Sarah stops the bike to bring the loser to his senses and remind him of the importance of the mission, that he had just nearly ripped it off. Hera, her friend, and their new companions come to spend the night in an empty women's orphanage. The girl confesses to Nora that her daughter has serious problems. She needs antibiotics, but pharmacies have long been looted, as well as empty homes. Out of fear and powerlessness, Nora goes outside so that her daughter doesn't see her tears. But there the woman faces a new test. Horsewomen appear in the yard, who call themselves the mistresses of the house, and it seems that they are not very uninvited guests are welcome. The rest of the visitors are also discovered by the hostess very quickly. They transfer them to the stable to get rid of the extra miles. Nora notices something that could save them. One of the riders is injured, and Nora asks Hera to examine the girl and help her. Felcher tries to do something, but the bullet wound turns out to be too severe, and there is nothing at hand except tape and a pair of rubber gloves. A few hours of surgery do not bring results. The girl gets worse, and the leader of the female gang, Roxanne, decides to end her torment. Despite Nora's worries, Roxanne turns out to be kind and understanding. She invites guests to stay overnight in their house
and promises to give the antibiotics that Mackenzie needs. And when the company follows the leader, Hera realizes that antibiotics are only a small part of the gang's supply. They own a whole shopping center full of food. Sarah and Yorick continue to sneak into Boston to find geneticist Allison Mann. But at the entrance to the city, the couple is met by the checkpoint and many soldiers armed with a poisonous gas. Sarah offers a split. She will distract the military while Yorick and his monkey bypass the ambush. After meeting her colleagues in Boston, Sarah learns that the absence of men in the world has not saved him from crime. Entire squads of rebels are constantly attacking Harvard, trying to get inside and find answers to their questions. The plan works. While Sarah is talking to the military, Yorick sneaks into a headquarters to hide from the threat. But even there, he falls into the hands of the rebels, risking to be discovered. The guy is lucky. The rebels take him for a trance, and they allow him to leave, telling him where he can find his own, get the necessary hormones, and hide. Finally, Yorick and Sarah finds Allison Mann's apartment and then her office at Harvard.
The geneticist is not very happy about the visit of strange strangers, but as soon as Yorick takes off her mask, she immediately understands what they came for. Man realizes that she has to study the guy and his capuchin, but it is no longer possible to do this at Harvard. There is no equipment left, nor any samples for work. Therefore, she offers the only possible option: rush to San Francisco to take advantage of the laboratory there. Sarah agrees to another dangerous journey, but for some reason she breaks it in secret from Yorick's radio, depriving them of the only opportunity to contact the president. The agent uses this breakdown as an excuse to leave. She asks a friend to keep an eye on the geneticist while she finds another way to contact the White House. In the meantime, among the politicians are again starting disputes over the division of power, which are not of concern to everyone. One of Jennifer's assistants, Kristen, becomes ill and thinks she has lost her baby. Only here is an ultrasound shows the opposite. The pregnancy continues to develop, and it is possible that a boy is developing inside. Sarah breaks into someone else's house, the owner of which turns out to be no less dexterous than the secret agent. A scuffle breaks out between the girls. But when they still allow each other to speak, it turns out that both hackers work for the same organization, and they came here for the same thing: find the owner of the house and put a bullet in her. After learning about the crash of the helicopters, Jennifer does not find a place for herself, but Kristen tries to calm down her boss. Search Group reported that they found the bodies of only 2 pilots. Relief does not come for long. The president understands that most likely Sarah caused the accident, thus eliminating unnecessary witnesses, and it becomes scary. Yorick is in the company of a dangerous criminal, and it is unknown what she will do to him. In the White House is delivered Regina Oliver, who is running for president. Taking advantage of this, Kimberly is preparing a coup to get rid of the hated Jennifer Brown and subsequently seize power. Allison admits to Yorick that she is not sure about the success of the research. The girl does not know if they will have enough resources to find the cause of death of the men and reproduce their species. Whatever the case, Yorick is in for a tough time, and he and his capuchin will soon become test subjects. Sarah returns to the office and suggests that we move out. For some reason, she lies to Yorick, saying that she allegedly spoke to his mother and they have permission to travel to San Francisco. The trio sets out, not knowing that a military patrol with a photo of Sarah is driving around the city. But for now, the girls are waiting for a safe window between serves. Yorick decides to visit the place the rebels told him about, a community of people with a changed gender in which he can take off his mask and not be afraid to show a man's face. Sarah infuriated by Yorick's next trick, but it soon becomes clear that the main danger is not a guy, and she herself. The patrol arrives at the community and shows everyone a picture of it. The company manages to escape from under the noses of the gorges and hide in the church. Sarah have to admit that there is no connection she has with the White House, and she makes all decisions on her own. Hira, her friend Inora, and her daughter continue to live in Roxanne's municipality. At first, it seems that the company got into a real paradise. There is food, medicine, and safety. But when Nora tries to take her daughter away from another meeting of radical feminists, Roxanne goes berserk. She reminds that she's sheltered guests, which means that they must follow her rules and obediently listen to everything she says. Moreover, Roxanne tries to do everything so that little Mackenzie would hate men and join their movement. Another such meeting is interrupted by a combat alarm. Women build barricades and, armed, stand on the protection of their supermarket. The enemies turn out to be a group of unfortunate women with a little girl. Roxanne goes.
It drives the refugees away, refusing to help them. Allison finds a leaflet in Sarah's belongings with information about the agent's search. She suggests that Yorick run away so as not to expose himself to Sarah, but the guy refuses to betray his girlfriend, despite the fact that she is hiding something from them. In the evening, Roxana gathers her community for some solemn event. At the very beginning, she tells Gathered about Laura, one of the members of the movement that Roxanne proudly calls the Amazons. At first, everything looks very innocently, but in the midst of the festival, Hira and her companions begin to realize that something strange is going on. Laura, first they sprinkle it with earth, then they put it in the bathtub, and when it appears on the surface, everyone begins to call the girl with the new name of Athena. Deciding that all this is as strange as possible, Sam's friend Hira leaves the hall. One of the participants' movement catches up with him to warn him against conflicts with Roxana. But by doing so, the girl only creates problems for herself. She is called for a conversation. Jennifer is informed that the search party has spotted Sarah and is preparing an ambush on her. The president begins to worry that the intelligence officers will find her son. But by this point, Allison still manages to persuade the guy to leave, and the couple hides in the woods. The tension increases. The bloodhounds try to catch up to Yorick and Allison, but Sarah neutralizes the soldiers and destroys their radios, transmitting a signal to the White House. At night, Nora awakes to screams. Trying not to make noise, the woman looks out of the room and sees a crowd of Amazons raising a girl for talking to Sam. The smiling beauties turn out to be ruthless, but decides not to interfere. She wants her daughter was safe, and for this, she was ready to accept the rules of the game. Sarah finds a van, and the company continues on to San Francisco. Despite Yorick and Allison's attempt to escape, this naturally brings discord to the company, and the agent no longer trusts fellow travelers, and this leads to more trouble. Sarah falls asleep at the wheel, and the car flies off the road. Getting out of the car, Allison tries to find Sarah, but she is not in the driver's seat. But next to it, right there, are military convoys on cars that have nothing to do with the White House. Jennifer is reported on the incident, as well as the fact that there was a man among the fugitives. While the president is trying to divert suspicion from his son, he comes to his senses in an unfamiliar house, in the same bed with the same unknown woman. Getting out of the bed, the guy goes in search of his monkey, but finds himself in the company of people who brought him here. The inhabitants of the ranch to which Yorick was taken turn out to be quite peaceful, but they don't tell Yorick where his girlfriends have gone, and the girls at this time wake up in a prison cell, completely without understanding where they are or how they can get out of here. Jennifer addresses the survivors with a request to agree to evacuation and not to cause riots. In the crowd, the president notices a familiar face, Beth, her son's girlfriend, who had been in the hospital all this time. As the president talks to Beth, Kimberly continues to secretly agitate Regina to overthrow the imposter and take her place. Despite the friendly atmosphere, Yorick is not released. On the contrary, he is sent to the girl's cell to decide what to do with the prisoners next. To everything that happened joins the news that a new wave of influenza has been detected in Greece. Jennifer is instantly involved in solving this problem, but she has to solve another one. Marlowe appears in the command center to find out if the rumors about Yorick are really true. The wait in the cell seems so excruciating that an argument breaks out between Sarah and Yorick again. But the couple finishes their showdown as soon as the heavy door opens and one of the inhabitants of the settlement appears on the threshold. She informs the prisoners that a decision has been made about them. They are allowed to stay until Sarya is better, and after that, they will be taken out of the city and they will be able to continue their journey to San Francisco. The ranchers set aside a separate bedroom for Sam, but before she disconnects, she asks Yorick to be careful and trust no one. But the guy is sure that the agent exaggerates the danger. The settlement turns out to be quite fun, and everyone looks very peaceful and kind. Moreover, they have a lot of food. There's electricity and water, which have not been available in other regions for a long time. Marlowe's grief turns out to be so strong that the woman decides to end her suffering. Climbing to the roof, the widow of the former president of the country takes a step into the emptiness in order to reunite with her husband and sons as soon as possible. For her daughter, she leaves a note with apologies and the wish to cope. Meanwhile, Beth returns to town, not to her friend's apartment as she told Jennifer, but into a truck to join the rebels preparing a raid on the White House. Kate, one of the Amazons, tries to leave the group, but Roxana reminds her of the strict rules by firing a bullet into the back of the fugitive. But the rest of the inhabitants of Roxana in this does not admit it. She makes it look like the girl was attacked by nomads. And so that this doesn't happen again,
Roxanne sends everyone to an intensive shooting practice. In addition, Roxanne is going to see the guests off. Nora learns of this from one of the members, and she rushes to the leader to beg her to let her and Mackenzie stay. No persuasion has any effect on Roxana. She gives Nora a couple more days, after which the woman and her daughter have to leave the commune. She recalls how she managed to find this place and create a community of Amazons, and from the first day, Roxanne was the only leader here. Nothing has changed during this time. Roxanne continues to dictate her terms and instill in the inhabitants of the community that danger awaits them outside of it, and death. She holds meetings every day, at which the participants must remember all the nasty deeds of men and make sure that Roxanne is the only one who gives them safety. Sam is not allowed to attend these gatherings and prepares to leave to occupy the guest houses on the shores of the lake and establish his own commune. But Hera manages to fall under the influence of Roxanne. The girl is not sure that she wants to leave. Witness of the emotional conversation between friends becomes Roxanne. She gets hooked on Hera's ears again and convinces the girl that even a real man can't talk to her like that. The pair end up parting ways, and Roxanne chases Sam away at night, allowing him to take some food. In the morning, Roxanne does not tell Hera that she was the one who let Sam go, but she does everything to calm the girl down, and in honor of Hera, even arrange a celebration of saying goodbye to all things masculine. The holiday ends with a noisy, fun party, at which everyone rests except Nora. The woman never manages to join the team. And to avenge this, she sets fire to the mall while everyone is asleep. The Amazons manage to escape, but their supplies are destroyed, and Nora pretends that she has nothing to do with it. She gets lost in the crowd depicting grief. Pleased with her action, Nora prepares for a night escape. She goes into the woods to check on her supplies, but on the bank of the river, the girl finds a police car full of bodies. It becomes obvious that Roxanne is not at all the same who she pretends to be, and Nora decides to use this to her advantage. Choosing a moment when they can be alone, Nora tells Roxanne about her find, and she promises to keep quiet, but in exchange for privileges in the community. He and his daughter should always have the best food, security, and a roof over their heads. But
She asks her accomplices to be ready for a coup in 30 minutes. She turns to Kimberly for support, but after the death of her mother, the girl loses her passion and no longer wants to participate in the changes. At the same time, under the building of the government, the Beth team is planting a charge. Jennifer Brown is summoned to the command center to present an accusation of withholding information about Yorick. To protect her pregnant assistant, Jennifer has to admit that her son actually survived. She also talks about the fact that the guy was sent to a geneticist in the name of salvation of the world, but no one knows whether he got to the place. Even those who were on Jennifer's side the day before take Regina's side. They ask the deceiver to resign and transfer power to the real president. But the discussion of this issue has to be postponed since an explosion is thundering in the building and most likely it was penetrated foreign. The rebels break into the building under the leadership of the BT. Making their way through the underground tunnels, they collide with politicians, and the Presidential Security Service has to lay down their arms and surrender. Jennifer recognizes Beth despite the balaclava, but the girl manages to signal that the woman should be silent and not give it out. Regina's desire to be president disappears as soon as danger arises. Therefore, Jennifer Brown has to take responsibility and deal with the rebels, responding to their demands. The rebels take the hostages out of the control center in order to leave the building with them and not to encounter the feral citizens. And it is at this moment that Regina still begins to prove that the president is he or she, and everyone should listen only her. In a fit of anger, she accuses everyone of betrayal, tries to betray her friends, including Kimberly, and, cherry on the cake, declares that Jennifer Brown's son is alive. One of the rebels shuts up a hysterical woman with a bullet in the forehead, but this does not negate what she has already said. And the most important thing is that it completely confuses the plans grouping. A long stay in the settlement leads to the fact that Yorick is hunted. The women had missed me, according to male attention, and they would not mind spending time with a survivor. Taking advantage of the fact that her friend is still busy and Allison is making acquaintance with the locals, Sarah hides in the woods to destroy the sensor that has been transmitting the signal from it all this time. The rebels do not have time to take the hostages out of the building. The second enemy group launches tear gas through the ventilation. People in panic scatter in different directions, and those who do not have time to hide fall dead to the floor. Beth secretly withdraws with Jennifer. She handcuffs her and tries to take her away. The president does not have time to take his pregnant assistant with him. But Kristen is not alone. Kimberly stands up for her. Through the underground parking, the girls manage to get to the exit. Among the personal belongings in the memorial town, Roxanne finds a notebook with the names of all the surviving men. Now the leader has a new goal: find them all and destroy them in order to free the planet. Start Amazons. They decide with the guy who has already caught their eye and who now lives in a village nearby. His portrait, the Nora, shows Roxanne, and of course, it turns out to be Yorick Brown. Beth gives Jennifer her uniform, and before break up, the president tells the girl that Regina's words were true. Yorick is alive.
Roxanne and Nora go in search of the village in which, according to their assumption, the surviving man lives. But as if anticipating the imminent arrival of guests, Sarah hurries her friends to move on. I don't like the news of my departure, Yorick, but he is not ready to argue with the agent. But it is unlikely that the company will have time to disappear. Roxanne has already found the estate, and she prepares the squad for an offensive in the next few hours. During a meeting at Roxanne's camp, two nomads arrive, and from them, Hera learns about the death of the president. Not knowing that someone other than her mother claimed this post,
The girl thinks that it is about her, but in fact, Jennifer is alive. After mourning her daughter, she prepares to escape with Beth. Since the president cannot stay in the city, she has long been hunting is open. At night, Sam sneaks into Jennifer's house. The woman immediately recognizes her daughter's friend, and together the company he tries to escape, but the house is surrounded. Christy and Kimberly take refuge in an empty barn. Waking up early in the morning, Kimberly tells her friend that she knows how to save themselves all. They need Yorick to continue multiply. Yorick, apparently, agrees with them, because he spends this night in bed with one of the residents' village, which had long had its eye on him. The idol is destroyed by the appearance of the Amazons, led by the mad Roxana. They burst into the streets of the city and demand that the man be handed over to them. Sarah jumps out of bed at the sound of gunshots. She instructs Yorick's new girlfriend to take the guy out, and she stays in the house to repel the attack. Understanding the numerical advantage of the opponents, Sarah comes out with her hands up, pretending that she is afraid of the guests. She takes with her a local trance, passing him off as the same man. A serious shootout begins on the main street. The sounds distract Sarah's convoy, and the girl disarms the opponents and escapes. Even the little one joins the battle, Mackenzie, trying to prove to Roxanne that she does not have a place in the community in vain. At the same time, Hera catches up with the group of fugitives. She shoots at them until Yorick turns around. But when she recognizes her brother, the girl freezes, and Yorick's girlfriend fires a bullet at her, unaware that she is her boyfriend's sister. An injured Hera manages to tell his brother about the death of his mother, and that the Amazons want to destroy him. She allows Yorick to leave, and for this, she eliminates one of her tribeswomen. Shootout in the city in full swing, but unexpectedly, Nora raises her hands and walks into the center, declaring that they are giving up. This infuriates Roxanne, but no one cares about it anymore. Hera tells Nora that Yorick is alive. This gives the women strength. And, returning to her camp, Nora decides to displace Roxanne, opening the eyes of the assembled girls. But conversations do not work. Roxanne continues to provoke Nora until she gets shot in the breast. Out of surprise, the Amazons raise their weapons, but find comforting words for them. Next to her, shoulder to shoulder, Hera becomes the shoulder. And from that moment on, there is no new leader at all. Sarah walks a few kilometers and finally finds Yorick and Allison. The guy is depressed that he has lost all his loved ones, and he no longer has any meaning to live. Listening to her friend, Sarah admits that she understands him very well. As a child, she also lost her parents. Also, Sarah tells Yorick that if she wants, he can leave. She was subordinate to Jennifer, and therefore after their contract was terminated. But the guy refuses, and he asks Sarah to become his coach so that he can stop being a burden and be able to protect himself. Meanwhile, Jennifer, Beth, and Sam find themselves locked in an empty room under the supervision of cameras. The company doesn't know that they were captured by Sarah's Secret Service commander.